Hello there, Michelle Dewberry with you till 7 o'clock here on Jubes & Co. alongside me, Mike Goodwin and Mike Buckley until 7 o'clock. A huge response to that horrendous story that we have just started our programme with. 14-year-old child. It makes me so angry. It makes me so upset, and I can feel and I see you guys coming in, so many of you writing in. You've got children, you've got grandchildren. We don't deserve that. What have we done in this country as decent, law-abiding people? We want to just be safe. We want to just be left alone. We want our kid to be able to get on a bus, to be able to go to school, and you know what? Actually make it home again safe. That would be really nice, wouldn't it? And it does. It makes me really angry. I was just thinking about it in the break. You know, how could a child? They do. So many of these kids carry these knives and all the rest of it. And I was thinking, you have these songs and stuff that glamorise all of this knife crime and gangster life and all the rest of it. And then it made me think, and I'm not connecting it to this stabbing or knife violence or street violence in any way, shape or form. I'm moving the story on. But we had that situation yesterday where you had the Labour Party, Mike. They'd put up this TikTok kind of video thing promoting their latest endeavours. And the lyrics to the song, and ladies and gents, I ain't going to tell you the lyrics because it's tea time, you've got kids around, but they were pretty grotesque, and they've had to apologise for it. And I mean, this is the government.
I mean, this isn't a huge story. It doesn't need to be a huge story. Somebody made a mistake. They put a video out. It had a musical soundtrack. For some reason, in Portuguese, I guess they just liked the sound of the music. What they didn't do was check what the lyrics meant by asking somebody Portuguese. So unfortunately, they were. I mean, I was reading about it earlier on. They were pretty offensive. Somebody made a mistake. It's not the kind of mistake you would expect a government or any kind of professional organisation to make. Rightly, the Labour Party have taken the video, or the government's taken the video down and apologised, and they obviously just need to make sure that if and when they next put up a social media video with music on it and it's in a foreign language, they ask somebody of that ethnicity or who speaks that language what it means.
Especially when you're standing in their home in the Parliament talking about you're very serious about preventing violence against young girls while simultaneously playing a song in your latest advertisement, which in some ways, and I'm turning myself down because you don't want to know the lyrics, ladies and gents. It's not for you, it's not nice. But one of the lyrics was celebrating punching young girls in their, private parts. I mean, words fail. Do you know what? I'm going to move on. Words fail me, honestly. Sometimes I think this country is just going more bananas by the minute.
Well, it's not a great week to have that song come out at the same time as we're debating the mass abuse, rape and harassment of young white working class girls. And there's a lot of hypocrisy I think people see now when they look at not just the Labour movement, but the left in general. I'll give you one example. Why is it that during the entire Me Too scandal, we seem to talk about all of the preoccupations and obsessions of middle-class feminists, but that scandal really did not at all look at the white working-class girls being abused by these gangs? I mean, I've had a pretty vigorous debate all week with journalists saying, why is it that only some groups seem to be considered fashionable and socially acceptable, but actually these poor girls were not? And for me, that song was another example. I mean, the Labour government just isn't thinking clearly. It's not thinking things through. It's just throwing things out there, like Starmer saying everybody's far right again. They're not thinking stuff through.
Are they thinking stuff through, Mike?
I mean, they are thinking. I mean, this video was unconnected to any government policy. Of course, it was just simply a mistake that somebody made pressing the send.
Why are they making so many, schoolboy errors? These are basic
somebody
things.
in a rush picked a song that sounded nice to put it up on the internet.
Why would you be in a rush?
That needs to never happen again, because people are busy when they work in government. In terms of government policy, there is serious government policy, and as we were talking about Yvette Cooper, looking into all the things he's dealt with, I'm very glad about you put the statements up earlier from the government saying that they're acting on implementing the recommendations of the various reviews that have been held into violence against young people.
I can tell you now, one of the people that's getting a tough time when it comes to grooming, and I want to talk in a second about something else he said, Robert Jenrick, because he's been talking about medieval cultures and alien cultures, and we'll come on to that after the break, worry not. But just very briefly from you both, many people are saying that the Tories, they didn't do enough about this issue when they were in power, did they?
No, nobody did enough. And it's not just even politicians. As a society, we completely failed. Not just a handful of girls, which would also have been bad enough, but thousands of young, predominantly white working-class girls from, let's be honest, communities that are not really on the radar of Westminster and Fleet Street. And the reality is, we overlook them. There were rumours of the mass rape gang scandal, Michelle, from as early as the 1970s. And it was only really in the early 2000s people began to ask questions, like Labour MPs, Anne Cryer, later Sarah Champion. They were called racist, including by Labour MPs. They were called Islamophobic. Then eventually we got to the reporting of Andrew Norfolk and Sue Reid at the Mail, 2010, 2011. Andrew Norfolk has come out and said even he struggled to write about it and talk about it.
But hold on, because you had people like Tommy Robinson and people like that.
Well, I was going to say, you had political groups before that, people like Tommy Robinson, the British National Party and others. But as a society, I've said this week, this will be seen as one of the biggest failures in our society and culture.
Will it?
Clearly mistakes have been made, and clearly there's been actions taken or, crimes committed that have been horrendous. We are dealing with that. And the Home Secretary...
You're not calling a national inquiry, though, are you? You're not calling a national inquiry.
We have had multiple inquiries.
Which aren't good enough, and everybody knows.
What's important is that we now implement the results of and the recommendations of those inquiries.
So this is really important.
Which is what the government is now doing, which is the right response. To kick this into yet another inquiry simply delays action.
OK, so anybody who knows anything about the rape gang scandal knows that the national inquiry you're talking about, the J report, was too narrow, too local, not broad enough.
That isn't what the people who wrote it and took part in it.
Well, of course they wouldn't say that because they wrote the report. What we need is a national inquiry that recognises what this is. A systemic
so what you want is just more
scandal.
Talk and no action.
No, I'm saying...
Well, that's what you're saying.
I'm saying the previous report, the J report, everybody who's looked at it knows the recommendations aren't strong enough. It only mentions Rotherham once. It doesn't even look at towns like Bradford. All of these local towns, 50 towns, have been saying we've got a problem with grooming. That inquiry doesn't look at what this is, which is a national connected scandal run by organised crime, I would suggest, organised gangs of Pakistani Muslims, rooted in anti-white racism. We need to get all of this out into the open. We need to find the truth. It's not about playing politics with it. It's about doing what we need to do to get these girls justice.
Well, hang on, because if Reform UK and all the rest of it felt so strongly about all of this national inquiry and stuff, why weren't they campaigning for it previously then?
In the 2024 general election, I'm not here to defend any political party, but I'll point one thing out. There was only one political party that was saying we should start deporting dual nationals who were convicted of grooming. That was the Reform Party. There was only one party saying we should issue a formal apology. In fact, here's a question. During his speech, why didn't Labour Prime Minister Keir Starmer apologise to the country for this scandal? Why didn't he say, as Prime Minister, I'm sorry to these girls on behalf of every Prime Minister, on behalf of every local council that turned a blind eye, on behalf of every social worker, every police officer that didn't respect, recognise and speak up for these girls. I would have expected a Prime Minister to do that. Why didn't Keir Starmer apologise?
I don't know. You'd need to ask him. I'm not sure it's his job to apologise.
No, I'll tell you why. It's because he doesn't get it. He doesn't actually understand what's going on in this country.
It's his job to deal with it and to delegate that responsibility to Yvette Cooper, who's Home Secretary, to deal with it. And they are actioning that, and they are actioning the recommendations.
Well, they're not giving us a national inquiry, are they?
They don't need to, because inquiries have already happened. And as they've said repeatedly, inquiries have happened, the results and the recommendations need to be implemented.
Do you know why they're not giving a national inquiry? Because they're more concerned... I'll say this because nobody else is going to say it. They're more concerned about the Labour Party's support among Muslim communities than they are about the girls who are abused, trafficked and abused. That's why they won't commit to a national inquiry.
That's quite a claim for which you have no evidence at all.
No, well, it's pretty obvious. Jess Phillips, among others, almost lost their seat because of Muslim voters rebelling against the Labour Party.
Jess Phillips has given her, a significant chunk of her career and her life to action against violence against women of all kinds. And it is worth mentioning that the vast, vast majority of sexual violence and violence against women is perpetrated by white men, not by many of any.
You see, that is exactly the mentality as to why Labour are not committing to the national inquiry. Organised gang-based sexual exploitation is overwhelmingly more likely among Pakistani Muslim gangs. That's an empirical fact. It's in all of the reports. Labour, politicians, activists and advisors like yourself, have to accept, and we can all see it through gritted teeth, that actually this is a problem in predominantly Pakistani Muslim communities. If Labour was serious about the issue, you would come out and say, right, we need to get everything out into the open. We need a national inquiry. I want a name and shame. I want to know what's going on in Bradford, Rotherham, Rochdale, Peterborough.
I'm convinced that Labour is serious about dealing with this than that Yvette Cooper and the Home Secretary and the Home Office are
right, let me ask you this on behalf of some of my viewers, because I know they'll be shouting this at the screens. You just referenced then that statistic, which is accurate. 85% of paedophiles, child abusers, disgusting people are white. No one disputes that. But that's not what we're talking about. And what I wonder is, have you read things like the transcripts the sentencing transcripts of these gangs?
I haven't. That statistic is relevant because otherwise it's possible that people will go away with the wrong impression.
No, hold on. This is why I need to understand whether or not you've read the transcripts. Why haven't you availed yourself of that information? Because this is very publicly available. It's been circulated more than wildfire at the moment.
It's not my job to deal with that issue.
Well, can I make a respectful suggestion to you? And I'm going to make this to anyone else that wants to, pipe up about this 85% statistic, which is accurate. I'm not disputing that statistic. There is a fundamental difference, and you're all disgusting, by the way, whichever creed or nationality or skin colour or belief set you've got. If you abuse and touch children sexually, you disgust me, you make my skin crawl. Notwithstanding any of that, there is a complete difference. It is a completely different set of crime when grown men are basically scouring the streets to look for girls, predominantly based on their skin colour, based on a lack of respect for that skin colour, and torturing them. If you have read these transcripts, and I implore all of you, if you haven't looked at them, you must read these transcripts, because when you read these transcripts and you see what these men, these disgusting creatures did to these little girls, you weren't ever in these conversations, again, I don't think, 10 round when we're discussing this and say, yeah, but most paedophiles, 85% are white, because you will know that this is a completely different set of, it's a kettle of fish that is so different. These men, these creatures, disgusting, they were torturing these girls. They were doing the most horrific things to them, sometimes not just to the point of death, but over that line, over that point of death. So please, Mike, everyone, read these transcripts, and then I'll ask you about them again when you have, and I bet my bottom dollar you will also see what we're talking about. This is a very different thing, and I would say it absolutely does need a national inquiry. We need to understand the scope and scale of what this is, where this is, who is still doing it, because it will still be happening, believe you me, and get it sorted out. Stop saying mistakes will happen. They've already happened. What you need to do now is understand it, be honest about it, and stop it happening now and in the future.